Market data is out. We're going to take a look at what's going on right now, but we're also going to take a long look and look 4-6 years ago and compare it to that to see what our market is compared to those years versus the unicorn years a couple of years ago. Coming up next. All right, what's going on, friends? We are going to take a look at the current market data and also do a longer view of it, and I'll get to that in a second. But just looking at the current market and what's going on, looking at the top line summary, right? If we look at today, there are 1,800 active listings and almost 900 properties under contract. This is, if you look back at the last 5 months, there is less inventory and more properties under contract than there has been in the last few months. So like I said last month, and I'm going to say going forward, it looks like we're through the worst of it. So that kind of December, January, February, March was the lowest point that we've seen in a long time in terms of number of homes that were selling, but prices didn't really fall at that point. So that looks like that trend is somewhat continuing back up, where we are seeing the active listings are not recovering. There are not more properties coming on the market. We're actually lower than we were. We're at 1,800 even. We've been at 2,000, 1,900 the last few months. So it's been higher, and that under contract number was down in the 700s at one point. And so there were less properties under contract and more properties in the market a few months ago, and that number has continued to come together and has tightened up. So it's an interesting way to look at the market versus the last couple of months. But if you look at a longer view, so this is one of my favorite charts to look at, and it is the 12-month chart that shows you number of properties that are selling month over month, right? So if we look at this chart and we look at the trend line, we've been seeing a steady decline. And like I said, those January or December, January, March numbers were pretty low, and then they started to trend back up, right? So we were up to 450 sales for the month of May, which is the highest that we've seen. If you got to go all the way back to June of last year to where we were July of last year to where we were around that 450 mark. So it's been low since then, under that 450 mark, but we're trending back up. If you look at it compared to the first half of last year, it seems bad. I mean, you were up in the 600-700s in terms of number of homes or number of properties that were selling in those months. And when you look at 333, 220, 88, it seems like a really bad number. But we do have to put that into context, right? I've been hearing that 21 and 22 have been called the unicorn years, right? They were outliers, crazy activity. It was wild during those years, and they weren't a good reflection of a normal real estate market. It was very, very hot, very, very busy, and we still haven't recovered from that in terms of inventory, and that's why inventory is still so very low. But if we take a longer view, and I go back to 2019, where this was pretty much a normal market, right? Most people would agree this was a pretty normal market before the run-up and the COVID years. And if you look at the number of properties that sold on the Big Island, it was always kind of right below 400 or right above 400. So going into the months that we're in, they were definitely higher the last couple of months. But if you look at 468 in May of 2019, is almost on par with where we're at today in terms of 450. So if you look at the market today and the last few months, it's pretty much even or even a little bit stronger than it was back in 2019. And if we go even further back and we go to 2017, this is what the numbers look like. And same thing, right? We had 517 sales back in 2017. But if you look at these other numbers, I mean, normally below 400 sales per month, hovering around that 400 sale mark. So looking at where we're at today, it's not a big deviation from where we were just a few years back. And compared to the COVID years, which were the unicorn years and things were crazy, it's not a fair comparison to make because things are very, very different. We're very different during those years, and they're very, very different today. And it definitely feels like we've kind of restabilized into somewhat of a normal market. The big difference being that if you look at these years, the number of, and we can go back to that, the number of properties that were available during those years were very, very different, right? So today we're looking at 1,800 properties available. If we go way back, let's go all the way back to 2017, like we were just looking at, there was about twice as many properties on sale, and I'll show you the definitive number here. But if we go back to 2017, we're talking about 3,500 properties on the market and 900 under contract. So you had a huge number, 1,600 more properties on the market back then, and the same number of properties that are selling. So the fact that we are still seeing around the same number of sales with so much lower inventory is really a sign that the market is still very strong, and anybody who's shopping right now can feel that there is still very, very low inventory. So that is your quick overview of the Big Island market and a comparison to the pre-unicorn years, which I think is important to do to keep everything in context. But the short story is the market continues to truck along. Everything is strong. We're seeing homes go under contract still in a week if they're priced property and they're marketed property. So it's still a good time to sell. And the reality is people are still buying, right? If you're sitting on the sidelines waiting for something to happen, buyers are not doing that. There's a big stable of buyers that are still buying in this market. If you need a home, the best time to buy a home is when you need one and when you can afford one. And interest rates and everything else are not holding people back from doing that. So if you have any specific questions about your specific situation or you want to have a consultation, you can always book a meeting at the link below or hit me up at dylan@buybigisland.com and I'll get back to you. And you can always put something in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. That's your Big Island Market Update. See you guys next week. Aloha.